the world that the story takes place in is the real world, but the game world has these long, narrow pathways specifically so Sonic can run at supersonic speed. And it's just like, who built these? Like, who would make this pathway specifically for a hedgehog to run on?
The thing is, sometimes like, when you're playing Final Fantasy and stuff, 10 in particular often feels a bit unusual because it's something about the extra realism, but you'll have a corridor and there will be like a left path going off it. There's a treasure chest at the end. This corridor serves nothing.
It ends at like the end of a hallway where you would expect a door to be, but they put a treasure chest there, and you're like, oh yay, I don't care how unrealistic this is. I got loot.
It's like a quota thing. It's just a quota thing over there. Like in the construction of the building, you need to have X amount of toilets, X amount of room for cabling, X amount of endless hallways.
For, advertising.
I've got an idea, boys. Stay with me.
Hallways that lead nowhere.
I love it.
Many months later.
I need to find another game.
I had a fourth.
I don't need your pity.
I have like 9 here, but...
Yeah, but you don't understand the topic.
Boom, roasted.
Was it, or is it just I don't know how to communicate what it is I'm trying to discuss?
Boom, roasted on you now.
Before we begin, the Gamers Advocate would like to remind you that any episode could contain game spoilers, so watch or listen with discretion. And now your hosts, AMKomnenos, Banana, and Legion. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamers Advocate. We're joined, as always, with AMKomnenos. I wanted to give you the opportunity to do your point thing. Legiongrey, and myself, BananaHammockRepublic. Today we're going to be discussing 10 games that everyone should play. And we ran into a little bit of confusion with this topic because I am very ineffective at communicating, but our focus for these 10 games are going to be accessibility, things that are very approachable, games that represent a genre and showcase that genre very effectively. So if you are an experienced gamer who has not played outside your genre, these are games to check out. If you're a brand new gamer, these are games to check out. The goal of this episode was to showcase games we thought were good representations across all of gaming. So we can get right into it. Who wants to start us off?
And also important to notice that this might be a series that we do, focusing on various subjects that we cover. Possible. So, because we could not agree on that. But specifically, these two could agree. I could not agree. I was the problem.
Let's be honest. So, there were 3 problems, right? Banana's terrible at explaining, Legion's terrible at listening, and I was getting angry. Okay,
I'm actually excellent at listening. I'm horrible at always understanding because I take the minutia of what you're saying and I contextualize it, and sometimes it just becomes a blundered mess. But
I think that is the exact counterpart to why I'm bad at explaining. It's because I choose my words very carefully, and every word has a very specific meaning in my head, and it's apparently not the same meaning that Legion understands it. So we definitely got into a conversation where I said something with words that didn't mean exactly what I was saying, and Legion disagreed with words that didn't mean exactly what I was saying. So yeah, this could become a series of misunderstandings.
This episode is brought to you by our pain and suffering. Enjoy.
So I'll start off since I kind of like interjected that a little too soon. But
you normally do the introductions, right? So let's take this chance. Let you jump in first.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I chose Plants vs. Zombies, the first one. I haven't really played the second one too much, so I won't comment on it. But Plants vs. Zombies is that very basic tower defense, exactly. But it's got the really cute characters, wonderful music. You got Dave who speaks in blah, 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 blah. It's really engaging. It's real fun. It's so simple to kind of get started and quickly master. And the more you play it, the more you realize, okay, well, I can get ahead. I don't have to just wait on things. You can, when you're getting ahead, then you can kind of get creative with what plants you want. And so there's a lot of versatility. The game is kind of guiding you to say, hey, you're going to need nighttime plants now. You're going to need daytime plants or whatever. And maybe there's a mix. But at the end of the day, it's just a lot of fun. So it's real easy to kind of start from beginning to end. And then even if you haven't, and this is the point I wanted to think about when I chose these games, is can I walk away from this game 2 weeks from now and then come back and still know how to play it? And that's definitely one that I could.
That's a good criteria. I like that choice. I think that is Plants vs. Zombies is very emblematic of a lot of things that I think we're going to see in many games on this list. There's an inherent little bit of silliness that makes it approachable. There's not we're not going to be tackling heavy topics with Plants vs. Zombies. It's just a fun game, and fun is a big focus. It's also a game that very effectively teaches the player how to play the game, and that is going to be a huge, huge factor for approachability. So for somebody who is new to gaming or somebody who is new to this genre, that level of communication from the developers to say, this is the basics of how to play the game. These are the simple controls. This is your goal. We're not going to hand feed you everything beyond that. You'll be encouraged to explore and try new strategies and build from there. But we wanted to give you the bare bones functionality right out of the gate and tell you exactly how to play the game and then let you go from there. And I think that's a great thing as far as making a game approachable to a new audience.
I'm going to pile on one thing to the list of praise, and it's the addition of cooperative multiplayer, which I think for any new game that you're getting into, it's an infinitely more welcoming experience if you can have someone there to hold your hand on the way. And it can be someone who's also just starting out, so you've got someone to share your frustrations with, or it can be someone who actually knows what they're doing so that they can just push you along, and if you're not doing something quite right, maybe they nudge you to do the right thing, or maybe they just sort of quietly do something so you didn't even notice you really made a mistake and you can make some progress and keep having fun. It's the kind of game that makes gaming more widely available. It's the kind of game that just feels approachable when you see it. They're beautiful games that I know certain people aren't going to play because they're not really into gaming and it might not be a way in. This feels like the kind of game that anyone could try, but also if you're a gamer, there's more to it to keep you actually playing. Yeah. So it feels like a beautiful, clear example of an accessible game. It's there for everyone, and it's also got that depth if you want to keep on playing.
Yeah, I think that depth is going to be a big part of it as well. That simple to learn, difficult to master is going to be probably an evaluation that can be levied against pretty much any game on this list.
Oh, and one tiny addition that I completely forgot to add at the time. It's also an example of a classic game genre, tower defense. This is something that goes back. So it's got a nice attachment to this legacy of games before it as well, which I think is always very sweet. You see that as well with games like Candy Crush, where there's so much built on the legacy of what came before. So we also have that nice, heartfelt idea that it's honoring the gaming that preceded it.
Yeah, definitely. I think Plants vs. Zombies is a great first entry on our list. Com, why don't you go ahead and fill us in with a second?
I'm going to go with a very, very, I think, obvious choice. I think many people, when we talk about most accessible and easy to play games, most welcoming games, would have gone for this, and I'm going to pick Mario Kart. And you can take almost any iteration of this that you want. I think for many people, this might have actually been their introduction to gaming, or certainly one of their most fond memories of their introduction to gaming. I think a lot of people had either a Nintendo or they had a friend who had one, and the easiest game you could play with other people for the longest time, really until Wii Sports, until Mario Party, was going to be Mario Kart. It's a game that you can play not just in multiplayer, but in large groups of multiplayer. So you can always have people actually playing if you gathered around together. It's relatively short. How long is a race? Maybe 2-3 minutes, and that's all. Then you get to start again. So even if something's gone awfully wrong, you've been red shelled, you've been green shelled, you've been hit by a banana, or you finally got a good power up at the back, perfect. Someone used lightning and you've dropped it. No matter how bad it's all gone, it's over in 2 minutes, and you can start again. And the game is constantly tracking you, isn't it? It's helping you if you're at the back. It's making you feel like you're better than you are. It lets the game remain competitive. So unlike a lot of new games when you first start playing, your buddy might not actually have to help you do a bit better. You might just do better because the game gave you a bullet when you were in 7th. The game gave you 3 red shards when you were in 4th. So it's very approachable. It's colorful. It's bright. It's relatively easy to play. But like Plants vs. Zombies as well, if you want to keep playing it, you can get better at Mario Kart. It is a game where everyone has a chance to win, but it's also a game where if you're better at it, you do have a higher chance to win. So there is that depth there if you're looking for it. So my choice, Mario Kart, and particularly for me, Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mario Kart also plays on something else we've discussed in previous episodes, the idea that the game is built around a concept you don't need to explain to your player base. Racing is a very straightforward, readily understood goal. Just go faster, be in first place. That's your goal. Everybody knows right out of the gate what they're trying to do. They just have to kind of learn the controls, know when to accelerate, when to brake. As you get more into it, when to drift and when to come out of your drift, and where to place certain obstacles that you get in the power-ups. It is one of those games that has a very simple core focus that gets progressively more complex as you grow in your understanding of the game. So yeah, I feel like that is a very, very approachable one. Although I will say Mario Kart 8 doesn't have the best Mario Kart game, which was popping the bubbles or the balloons on your opponents in battle mode from Mario Kart 64.
Mario Kart 8 does have battle mode.
Does it?
Yeah. Where you got the 5 balloons in the back of your cart?
Yeah. Why have I never seen that? Whatever. Mario Kart 64 forever anyway.
It doesn't have my inherent bias towards Mario Kart 64.
Yeah. Oh, it does?
Well, racing games have been around forever. I mean, they were on Atari. In the arcades, we had pole position, things like that. But what happens with Mario Kart and yeah,
Didn't expect that name.
Yeah.
Oy.
They even had a gear shift thing, so it was pretty neat. But one of my favorite stories out of Nintendo was when they were coming up with the Mario Kart. He couldn't quite get the spirit of it. Something wasn't happening. So he took all the devs, most of the employees, to a go-kart place, and they just rode rides and a bunch of stuff, but they actually rode those go-karts to get the feeling of what it feels like. And they were it was a whole day or two where they just raced each other and just had fun doing that. And then he brought them back to the thing, and that's where it starts to click. That's when they started trying to integrate some of those things, like how can you speed past one person, and do they make a little waving motion or something? That's all because they had the actual real world experience of integrating that. And without that, encapsulating what that fun actually felt like, I don't think it's the same game.
Yeah, I think that is a huge part of why Mario Kart is fun, is in very, very small doses, you get a personality of the other races or the other racers. So, you know, that moment where you pass somebody and you wave at them to just be that little like jab, like, haha, I'm doing better than you for the next 3 seconds. I think that is a huge part of what makes Mario Kart fun, especially when you get that immediate karma of, oh, I just took first place. Oh, I didn't notice there was a blue shell. Shit. I think those are the moments in Mario Kart that most people remember from their playthroughs of how incredibly frustrating but also hilarious that game can be.
I can speak to personal experience because I used to work at a go-kart place when I was in high school, and I worked on the go-karts and stuff. It's just, people just have fun with it. And so I think the game does a really good job of, again, encapsulating that spirit. So
I think, yeah, that's that other element. It's fun. Yeah. That's what makes games engaging and approachable. Is if your game is just very effective at teaching me what I'm supposed to be doing, I still don't have a reason to play it. But if it's fun and it does that, now I'm on board.
What do you got, Banana?
So I guess I'll follow up here. So for me, I had a few games on the list, but I think I'm gonna mention Minecraft first. I think Minecraft is definitely one of those games that it's had a tremendous impact on the gaming industry overall, and it's very, very approachable. And I think, you see a lot of the audience for videos about that game and just streamers who play that game is a younger audience, people getting into video games, showcasing that this game is approachable for any experience level. If you're brand new to gaming, you can get into Minecraft. If you've never played Minecraft before, you can get into Minecraft. And I think the other part of Minecraft that is the reason it's on this list for me is because when Minecraft first came out, I didn't give it a chance. I was like, I don't see the appeal. I don't know why I would want to play that. And then one of my friends described it to me as like, do you remember as a kid when you were growing up and you played with Legos? Minecraft is like playing with Legos from the inside. You get to build whatever it is that you're trying to build with Legos as if you lived in the Legos. And I was like, all right, I am intrigued enough to give this a chance. And then I played for a bit and I was like, all right, I'm on board. I feel like that is a game that if you give it that initial chance, you will almost immediately recognize something that you enjoy about that game. And that's the other part of Minecraft that I think is wonderful. There's a lot of different ways to enjoy Minecraft. There is kind of a progression if you want to, beat enemies, if you want to focus on like the combat aspect of Minecraft. There's a big bad enemy at the beginning of the base game, and then they expanded and there's another big bad enemy. There's a way to focus on just mining and building efficiency into resource gathering, almost to the point that like Satisfactory focuses on later. There's a way to do that in Minecraft. There's the opportunity to build a farm, or just explore, or just go fishing and relax. And there's variable difficulty so that it's available to anybody who wants to play any different way. So there's just a lot of variability, flexibility in Minecraft, and it's all very approachable. And again, it gets progressively more complex. If you want to start building automation, if you want to invest in figuring out how redstone works, there's a lot of different things you can do with redstone. And the game gives you the bare bones and encourages you to explore. I think it's just a very effective entry as far as getting people into gaming.
I think it does what you said. It's the Legos, but from the inside. I've never heard it worded in that really awkward way before, but I kind of love it. And what I really like about the concept of Minecraft, speaking as someone who's never played it, is I think it does what Mario Kart does. So Mario Kart is a game where the idea is clearly so very simple. You're going to race from A to B, and if you get there first, brilliant, well done, you win. Minecraft essentially says to you, go and have fun. And it's a bit vague in the way that it does it. Like you said, if you want to go build, go and build. If you want to play an adventure, go play an adventure. If you want to play with lots of monsters, great. If you don't want to, that's great too. It's a game that tailors itself to the player experience, probably more than most games could even imagine doing, which I think is naturally the benefit of its relative simplicity. Just at fundamental levels, it's quite simple. Obviously, it's massively complicated ultimately when you put all of the parts together, but each individual part of Minecraft is pretty damn simple. That simplicity means that it can be massively customizable. Stardew Valley is an incredible game for being a small-town farm simulator, whilst Death Stranding is an incredible game for being this porter in this post-apocalyptic world carrying packages all across the continent. Great. But they're very specific in what they're trying to do. They give you this game experience. Minecraft doesn't do that. Minecraft gives you Legos to build with, but it also feels a bit like a Lego set in that sense of just do what you want. Just go have fun. Which is probably one of the most admirable things for a game to actually be able to do. I don't think every game should do this. the gaming is normally suited by the fact that most games are quite targeted in their experience. They know what they want you to do. Minecraft is that one example of a game which just doesn't do that. It gives you the world and lets you go and make of that world what you will. 100% agree on Minecraft, despite having never played it.
Yeah, and someone who like crafts like me is like, I'm going to be looking for things, but I can't always find them, and that always kind of like put me off a little bit. And again, that's not a bad thing because it adds that extra variability. But I tend to do things in sandbox, so everything is with me, and I can just make whatever I want.
And so, there's the creative mode where you can just summon in anything that exists in the game to if your goal is just to build something cool. But if you want the process of going out and finding it, there's survival mode. And then you'll look at people who dig into like I was saying, the diamonds exist between Y16 and -64. There are people who've like dug into the details of the code and figured out all of those things. So like then you break things up into a 16 by 16 block or 16 by 16 by 16, that cube, and they'll scan for diamonds, and like as soon as you find the first diamond ore, you're done with that block. There's only ever going to be one grouping of diamonds in one of those chunks. So like people have found efficient ways to search for these limited resources.
Yeah, because I think it's important with like especially the topic we're discussing when we bring up a game like Minecraft. I think the first thing that comes to me as a survival crafting person, I'm like, okay, so now I have chickens. Do I feed the chickens? Do I cook the chickens? What do I do with these chickens?
Both. You feed them, you feed them wheat seeds and you can breed them, and then you can turn them into arrows and chicken.
Because when I first see that, I'm like, okay, it's an asset. And like you said, you can do all those things, which is great. That's what we want to highlight and say, if that's what you like and you like the versatility and all these extra little features that come with a game like that, that should be highlighted.
That's one of those things where like, you have to strike a balance between like encouraging players to experiment and then actually rewarding them when they do. So like developers have to anticipate what their players are going to do and what they're expecting from existing assets. So if I have chickens and I want more of them, how do I accomplish that?
Exactly.
Do I just leave them alone? Do I put on Barry White? What do I have to do?
Sade, come on.
Right. Channel lore. My bad.
We should have included that in our romance podcast.
You can just put Sade throughout the entire thing and we'll just get copyright struck.
That's true. Just inject it here and there. Yeah.
Go on, Legion. Take up your second game. What you got?
It's an odd choice, but I'm going to go with Diablo 2. Diablo 2 over Diablo 1, mainly because Diablo 1 is a struggle bus, in my opinion. A lot of people still love it. A lot of old school gamers love that. But for me, it's Diablo 2. Diablo 2 is a great entry. It plays well, performs well. It's easy to understand. If you only know how to left click on a mouse, you're good. Now, of course, there's health potions, and you can do a quick bind for that. I mean, they're there. But if all you do is you just run around, kill enemies, and then upgrade your armor or swords with things you find, you're good to go. But it's an easy game to play. It's a hard game to master because then you have the runes, and then you have socketed items, and then you have certain items that have no ability to repair them, but they are better than base level items. And so again, it's one of those, it's an easy game to play. It's a hard game to master, but you could definitely walk away from that game a month, a year at a time and still know how to play Diablo 2. And plus a good story. So
it's another game, isn't it, where there's probably more than the games we've already mentioned before this, where there's a lot more depth to it if you want it. So if you're looking to really become someone who's good at Diablo 2 in that more global sense of being good, so being in the top rankings of players, there's a massive amount of the game actually that you're going to need to master and to learn as well. But you can learn enough through essential everyday play. You can learn enough to play most of the game to be able to enjoy pretty much all the material, all the content, that's provided for you. See, I've never played Diablo 2, so I can't actually speak directly to it. But it's the impression that I've had of it is that it's fundamentally not complicated at its most basic level, whilst having the ability to become massively more complicated for those who wish to, which puts it in the same family of games as something like StarCraft, Age of Empires, or the classic beat-em-ups, a bit like Tekken and Street Fighter, where there's easy enough to pick up and play, and then there's just levels between us and the people who are really, really good at it, which I think is the case for many of the games we've mentioned already, because you can be very, very good at Minecraft. You can be very, very good at Mario Kart. It just so happens you can be pretty good quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Diablo 2 is an excellent choice because it is a difficult genre to think of an approachable game for. So for me, thinking like RPGs, I'd probably go to a turn-based RPG as kind of like an introduction, because it definitely gives the player control over the pace. But every turn-based RPG I can think of gets repetitive and basically requires grinding. Diablo 2 doesn't require much grinding from what I remember if you want to just play through the game. If you want optimization, yeah, you're going to have to go back and repeat sections and hope for drops and things like that. But if you just want to play the game, Diablo 2 is very much go to this area, do the combat with everything to make sure you're getting like the experience and drops from whatever you encounter in that area, and you'll be pretty much set to continue with the story. And it's not complicated combat. It's not turn-based, but it's also not like master these impressive skills or you're going to die kind of combat. It's not Dark Souls. It's not the optimization that like going into a raid in World of Warcraft requires. I don't need everything bound to a hotkey, and I need to memorize cooldowns and know the order I need to activate abilities. It's just, I learned this ability in my last level up. Let's see what it does. Oh, that's cool. I want to keep using that. Like, Diablo 2 is a very effective game at introducing players to adventure RPGs. So yeah, I think that's an excellent choice for this.
They used to advertise for mice back in the day of like good for 2 million Diablo 2 clicks. That's how they advertise their durability.
But only Diablo 2.
Yeah.
Fuck you if you're clicking in Excel.
I was stuck between two here, and they were from the same family, from the same engine. One was a game that I've very recently got into and I missed, and this is the one I'm not picking, which was Half-Life. I think it's incredible game, but I just got to the point where I didn't know Half-Life was a horror game until I played it. It's actually creepy as hell. No one told me that. So I can't have Half-Life because I think that's not welcoming. That's not going to be an accessible game. So I'm going to go with its weird, goofy twin Portal, which I think is one of the most charming video games I've ever played. And a lot of it's going to fall into the same classic categories that I think of when I think of accessible and relatively easy to play games. It's short. It's funny. It's got weirdly good music. And that's something I can definitely say for it. It's understandable. It doesn't really have to explain a huge amount of what to do to you because it presents what you're supposed to be doing and in very simple ways. And it's different. I don't think anything is really quite like Portal except for Portal and Portal 2. There's something very unique about the kind of game that it actually is. So it's got a charm to it. And there's a wonderful little thing about Portal, which I think is quite specific to it. And it's if you've beat Portal, you kind of join an in club. See, I don't think you get that with every game, but Portal, as soon as you know what someone means when they say the cake is a lie, you're in the club now. I think that's weirdly special. And it's something that when you've played this, you're now a part of that wider, broader community of people that hover around Portal and desperately wait for news of Portal 3 or Half-Life 3 or whatever the case may be. So it's a game that's just so peculiarly unique that I'm going to say Portal is one of the great games people should try, and it's also a very, very accessible game. Oh, and it doesn't rely really on reflexes or anything like that.
Yeah.
I can't think of any point where you're in the thick and frantic action. It's mostly time to think, time to reflect. And it's full of positive little feedback loops as you successfully solve mini puzzle after mini puzzle after mini puzzle. And it comes with one of those beautiful feelings of stupidity quite often as well. as you spend 10 minutes thinking, I don't understand, I don't understand, I don't understand, I don't understand, and then you see the solution and think, I'm an idiot. That's a really fun moment to have.
I think there are two major key points of Portal's approachability. One is that it's okay to feel stupid. That is a huge part of Portal. It is a puzzle game where the puzzles aren't impossible, but they're not going to click right away. Yeah. You are not supposed to know the solution the moment you walk in the door, and it's okay to figure things out. And Portal does a great job of not only telling you that's okay, but giving you the motivation of constantly having Gladys just shit talking you. Just the, oh, you succeeded. Well, moving on. Like the, fuck you, I'm awesome. Did you not see that? I'm the coolest.
And that you get to prove him wrong sometimes, because there's this wonderful progression in the puzzles where, for me at least when I played it, I thought, wow, these puzzles, they're getting harder and harder. But now and again, there'd be one where it just clicked. And I don't know if it was easier. And they knew this design in the game and thought, right, we'll give him 2 hard ones, then we'll give him an easy one. So you get that moment of, yeah, fuck you, Gladius, that's our friend. Fuck you, GLaDOS. And you get that moment of just brutal satisfaction as you've done this part that you were expecting was going to be a grind and you just go on through. So just think the pacing of the game is incredible. And one of the real... It feels like a masterclass in the fundamentals of game making. Yes. It doesn't really have much outside of the gameplay, and that's been enough. Now, most games, that's not enough for whatever reason. So for it to be enough says a lot about what they actually did.
That was the other thing about Portal that I was going to say makes it immediately approachable. And this is something you saw in the early Super Mario games that I think led to Super Mario Maker. Is Super Mario games do what Portal did, where they would introduce a mechanic, and then the next few levels would be use this mechanic. And in Mario, they had to make it possible to beat the level without always having that. So like you could lose the fire flower if you played sloppy and took damage or whatever. In Portal, you always have that functionality. But it's very much we are going to introduce this mechanic, and then we're going to explore everything that you can do with this. We are going to exercise this mechanic in very imaginative ways that you wouldn't have immediately thought of when you were presented with it. But you're never going to feel like, all right, I'm fucking tired of using the portal gun. Let's move on. Like that's the entire game. You're using the portal gun. And whenever it starts to feel like, okay, I've got it, I figured this out, they're like, oh, now there are turrets. They're going to shoot at you. Use the portal gun. Well, I didn't even think of this as a thing, and now I have the tool to deal with it. I just need to figure out how to use it. Also, there's a companion cube, and I need to carry this with me forever. It is my best friend. Yeah. How do I use this portal gun to achieve that? It's very, very good, and that is, like you said, that is a masterclass in game design. Putting in a mechanic in your game and then using it in every possible way without it becoming stale is exceptional game design.
Yeah, with Portal, I was thinking, like, when you said the cake is a lie, I was like, so we can confirm then that Stan from Dragon Age Origins has played Portal, because he says the cake is a lie.
Did not know that. But then
Stan's
again,
a gamer.
I never found Stan on my first playthrough, don't forget.
Oh my god. I still don't know how you didn't find him. The giant man with a yellow exclamation point above his head
in a cage,
in the middle of town.
He seemed like a bad guy. I didn't want to get mixed in with all of it.
He's in that cage for a reason. Moving on.
I am the law. Yeah.
So yeah, the Portal mechanics are infinitely easy to become familiar with right away. I mean, even if it's like, oh, there's a lot going on here, I can see in a 3D space, and you get over that pretty quickly just because the mechanics are simple enough for you to kind of say, oh, okay, I see what's going on here.
We've lost Com. He's singing.
Sorry,
Yeah,
plug in.
but even with the color spectrum and the graphical presentation of it, I couldn't tell you what year without looking it up that Portal came out because it still looks new and fresh. So it looks good. Yeah.
Well, that's when you can say a lot for the simplicity of video game design graphics sometimes, is when you do strive for realism, when you do strive for the highest fidelity graphics, eventually the time comes when we've left you behind. But if you work with a more simple idea, they can often be surprisingly timeless, which is why I will die on the hill that Final Fantasy VII looks better than Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah. I agree with that completely. But since we did just talk about Mario games, I'm going to go into my next entry, Super Mario World, which I think is the pinnacle of two-dimensional Mario games. I think this is where everything that they had done in the past 3 games for Mario, 3 if you're American, or I guess just not Japanese, because I believe Super Mario 2 was released as Doki Doki Panic in Japan, so it wasn't a Mario game. And then because of the success they found in the American audience with Super Mario 2, it is now released as like Super Mario USA. But it is I still love it. I still see it as a Mario game in my head. So prior to Super Mario World, in my mind, there are 3 Super Mario games, and each of them did something a little bit new. And then Super Mario World came along and integrated everything that existed before that, I think with the exception of the pick up and throw mechanic from Super Mario 2, and then added new stuff. If I remember correctly, Super Mario World is the introduction of Yoshi. And who doesn't love Yoshi? So they definitely, this was definitely an era of Mario games and Nintendo gaming where they're like, let's find something new to integrate into our game. And they were still in that game design era of let's utilize all of the cool stuff we put in our game in new and creative ways. Let's find fun ways to integrate these. Let's add in a bunch of secrets. Super Mario World has secrets all over the place, and they're incredible. the one of the first ones you encounter, I think in like one of the first ghost houses, leads to the super secret area, which I think is exactly what the area is called, which is just free power-ups. So if you are that motivated, you can cross the entire map, go back to this point, get mushrooms, capes, fire flowers, and Yoshi, and then leave. And go back to whatever level was giving you trouble. And you find that secret very early on in the game. So it's very, very rewarding when you find it. Like, this is the best thing ever. Now I am prepared for everything that's about to come. That game just does so many wonderful things that I think are emblematic of what gaming can be, that it had to be on my list. I just love Super Mario World.
Yeah, I think the thing that I remember from the small amount of time that I had playing Super Mario, and I can't remember which one I would have played or ones, would have been all sorts, is I always thought that, so I didn't own a Nintendo, so I had to go and play at a friend's place. So I was getting it in these really small increments where I could play a bit 1 week, and then maybe 6 weeks later, and then maybe 2 days later, and then maybe 4 weeks later, whatever it might be. It had that thing that Legion mentioned earlier, in that you could go away and then come back, and you know exactly what you're doing. You might need a quick second to remember exactly which button is jump, but it wasn't too bad. Yeah.
That'll take me a half a second to test out and relearn.
Exactly. I do this one time and we're good to go. And it was just, I felt like I was getting better, and the game's challenge was steadily increasing with me in a way that didn't feel punishing. I don't know how a game rides this line where you make me feel like I'm getting better, and simultaneously not just make it so it's more difficult now so that I'm really struggling. I find it's a line that games often struggle to hit, because how do you do that? How do you reward a player who's improving without just making it harder? And I thought just the difficulty line going through the game was on this really forgiving curve. that felt perfect for the tone of what that game was supposed to be. It's not meant to be Dark Souls. It's meant to be a platformer that's fun. But you make progress, you do get better, you recognize you're getting better, and the game lets you keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. Yeah. The pace is what I remember from those games, and the way that it doesn't adapt to you, but the way that it evolves as you're playing.
Nintendo's really good about anytime that there's some kind of new introduction, like you said, the pacing of the game, like you feel like you're getting better. That's because they're actually teaching you at the same time while the game's going on. So it seems different, but you're actually learning a new mechanic, and then now you're seamlessly integrating that mechanic into more advanced gameplay styles. So it just works.
And that's something that is fundamentally still true in any game to this day. When a game is able to introduce a new mechanic in a way that, and they give you a chance to learn it, and that first chance you use it, and you think, holy hell, this is cool. And then 2 or 3 more times you use it, and you think, oh, not only is this cool, but I think I'm beginning to understand when to use it. And then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times later, when all of a sudden now it's no longer a special mechanic, it's still special, but now it's just a part of the arsenal that you have, and you know how to use it, and we're just about ready to give you something else new. Like, that is still something we haven't mastered in game development, because how many games don't do this right? I mean, it happens all the time. But this, going all the way back there, was already getting that exactly right. And I think you can see then the legacy that a game like that has in how many games, even though we don't really produce that genre of games so much anymore, they still exist, but not really. We're mostly moved past 2D platforming. You can still feel the legacy of Mario in all of its iterations into pretty much every genre of game.
One of my favorite 3D Marios incorporates those same unique parameters that you had from the characters of Super Mario 2. And funnily enough, it's another Super Mario World game. Super Mario 3D World does everything that I think Super Mario World did for 2D in a 3D environment. I think it is a game that takes the 3D environment and makes it playable, which was not very easy to wrap your head around when you got to Super Mario 64. It was difficult for a lot of us, especially with that nightmare of an N64 controller. Yeah, but it incorporated that same Mario is just kind of your balanced, does everything fairly well. Luigi can jump a little bit higher, Toad runs a bit faster, and Peach can kind of hover as part of her jump. I'm just going to try my best to carry on despite what's going on. But it also did new things with Mario, which is not always what Mario games did, especially with the 3D ones. So you got the cat bell in Super Mario 3D World. So now you're running around on all fours, and you're a cute little cat who can climb and who can pounce. You have new abilities that change the way you play the game, and they're not super obvious, but you are encouraged to experiment to the point that you're like, oh, this is really cool, and I want to hold on to this ability. I want to see what else I can do with it. I want to progress through the entire level and look for secrets with my new ability. I think that is a second entry within like the Mario series, is one that does all of the same things and makes it approachable. It's just 3D is inherently slightly less approachable than 2D. So Super Mario World had to be on my list first.
Yeah, that naturally happens, I think, with some Nintendo games, especially the flagship ones, like even Metroid works great as a platform. Even the more newer ones with Prime, oh, amazing platform games. But you get to the 3D, and that's where doesn't translate. So
too complicated. And then you get a few entries into the 3D, and they're like, okay, they figured it out.
See, I was on the fence. Once you said that you didn't want to include a horror game, I started thinking like, well, that might be true, but I'm still going to stick to my guns here. Yeah. I'm going to say Silent.
Yeah, Com's not going to include a horror game. You're not Com.
Yeah.
And I might change my mind. Who knows?
But you had a good reason for why you didn't want to include it. But
Cobb's last entry, PT.
Well, it's short. I liked it because it was short.
Not many buttons you have to remember. It's very simple.
You just run away. Turn it off.
Everyone knows how to walk hallway and shit themselves, so it's perfect.
I've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
Everyone knows how to
I've been preparing
uninstall.
for this game my entire life.
But I am going to do a horror game. It's going to be Silent Hill 2. So I know the last time we had this conversation, you guys hadn't played it. So I'm not going to talk about the spoilers.
I mean, 2 weeks ago when we talked about it,
Yeah.
we still haven't played it.
Since then, I'm pretty sure y'all have, because my compelling narrative forced you guys to want to play it.
I think we both came to the conclusion that this is a game we appreciate. Still haven't played it.
I think we both came to the conclusion that you don't listen to us.
I do think that with Silent Hill 2 specifically, I can bring up references to things like Resident Evil and stuff that maybe this may make more sense. So with Resident Evil and other horror genre games, Alien Isolation, stuff like that, you have this impending issue that's always around you, whether you're trying to like skirt a zombie and you're like doing your puzzles and getting all this together while you're doing a lockpick, while you're escaping what's his
Mr.
name?
X?
Mr. X, yes, Mr. X. I almost called him Mr. Ed. The horse that talks.
Fucking talking horse running around here. I gotta get out of here.
That was enough for me. Yeah, I almost called him Mr. Ed, which I didn't. But my point here is that there's always like that little bit of stress while you're trying to do those things. Silent Hill is one of those that there are puzzles, you do find things, but there's those moments in between. You're not constantly being chased in that scenario. You're figuring it out. You're learning the story. You're uncovering stories while you're doing this. Yes, there's monsters running around, but what's weird about the monsters is that sometimes you almost have to provoke them in order for them to do anything to you, because they're on the outskirts. They may even see you and run this way. There's an unpredictability about them, which adds to the surrealness of it all. And I guess when Silent Hill 2 as an entry point into, like, say, things like horror, I think it's still the best horror game ever, but for a lot of reasons. It's just, it allows you to have the experience of the game without having to always indoctrinate your mind into like, I'm in a horror game, I must figure this out, I must blast these guys or whatever. There's so much story weaved into the narrative of the scene that it really lets you experience a horror game for what it is.
Could I ask why Silent Hill and not Resident Evil 2, sort of classic Resident Evil? So, where you don't have like Mr. X chasing you the entire time? Because I definitely agree that's a very different feel of a game. Like Resident Evil 2 Modern, that's a hell of an introduction to this kind of gaming. Is there any particular reason why you wouldn't pick Resident Evil instead? Or is it preference?
Well, like I said, because at the end of the day, we know Resident Evil as a story, as it's pushing along, it's somewhat almost secondary to you just trying to get through those things. There's a story there. It's a strong story, but I wouldn't say that the story makes the game. I mean, I think a lot of times people play that game for the puzzle engagement,
The gameplay and the narrative of Resident Evil don't marry up quite as well as they do in Silent Hill. So when I finish playing Resident Evil and I try to like reflect on the story, at no point am I going to think like, oh, and that's why I had to fight a zombie shark. Like, the story could exist without zombie shark. It's just zombie shark was cool, and why the fuck not?
Yeah. And without getting into too many details, this is just an example, but for instance, like in Silent Hill 2, when you're looking for a record, there's a broken record, you find a record player, you have to go to different shops where that was broken apart, and you'll find it hidden here and here, but they're also telling the story through those experiences as you get there, so that you can kind of build it together and glue it. You have to go to the record store to get the stuff together, and then you play it in the arcade thing, and then it unlocks a memory. That's classic Silent Hill. Versus Resident Evil, you're just trying to put things together so that you can unlock the door so that you can go to the next area. It's more or less what's going on. So they're both puzzle games at the end of the day, but Silent Hill's trying to weave its story into those puzzles, and there's a reason why the things you're looking for, everything has a reason. So it just fits better, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't a criticism. It was just I was wondering why, because they're obviously the two really big examples of that kind of game that go back, and they've started at a really similar time. They've had a really similar development arc over these last years, especially now with the remakes coming back. So I was curious
They're
what
both in DVD.
one of our friend wants to bang someone from both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, when you get a note in Resident Evil, it's more or less like a clue of like, this is how you get through this area or whatever. It's not really like you'll find that the code is in the courtyard or something to that effect, right? In Silent Hill, they're telling you the story of what they were doing, and you're supposed to like say, oh, so it might be in the courtyard because that's where they were experiencing this connection with that other person that I found their lock for, or whatever, their diary.
You got another one for us, Com?
Yep, I was just waiting to see, because I know neither of us have already played that, so we had to rely more on Legion. I just wondered if you had anything to add. Yeah, so for my last one, I think we'll probably find ourselves in similar positions. Well, I've got a list of another 6 titles now just staring at me, and I'm trying to desperately decide which one of them I'm actually okay with saying. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone else. Firewatch. So if anyone has not played Firewatch, it's a similar tradition of games to games like Gone Home, What Became of Edith Finch. Very similar idea. I think they all came out at a very similar time as well. It felt like we went through a mini boom of those early 2010s. We went through a boom of those XCOM style strategy games. Prior to that, we'd had the Gears of War type combat games. Around this time, we had these walking simulators. So I felt that they all came out in this sort of heyday together. I thought Firewatch was my favorite example of all of them. And I think it would be a great game to introduce you to this genre of what you might just loosely call the walking simulator. And I think this is a very important genre that people should try, because it's one of the unique gaming genres that exists. You could have a walking film. I mean, there's nothing stopping you doing it. And I'd imagine on YouTube, we probably do have that. Probably have someone who's climbed a mountain and put a GoPro on their head and said, let's go. But there's something about gaming and the fact that it's you putting one foot in front of the other every single time that I think is very unique. So, Firewatch. What I loved about it is it feels like a campfire story in a game. So we have to go and man a Firewatch tower somewhere out in rural, no one gives a fuck America. And from this tower, we're going to observe the season taking place around us. And we need to do what the person in our situation would do. We're just going to watch. But by watching, we start taking part in what's taking place in the world around us. We start hearing people, we start seeing people. We start finding out stories of what's happened here before, what's happened here now. We start realizing that there's not more to our character's past than we expected, but our character's past is very much having an effect on what they see around them in the moment. We have a relationship between our character and another unseen character, and this is, I think, one of the things that makes it really special. A lot of these walking simulators, you end up on your own, and you're finding out what's happened to other people in the past, what happened to this person. I'm going to find out the answer. Yay, you be. Firewatch is happening to you right now. You're in the event. And you're building a relationship with this other character that you never get to see. You're just going to be mainly interacting with them over a radio. And I think that's really special because it keeps the game moving. You want to know what's going to happen the next time you get to talk to this person, next time you get to speak to Delilah. What's happened to them? What have they been up to? Can they help me? Etc., etc., etc. And there's something else that's really beautiful about it as well, in that I think it's got more of a sense of adventure than a game like What Becomes of Edith Finch has. Because again, What Becomes of Edith Finch is primarily what has already happened. Let me just go and find out. This is all happening right now, and there's, very similar to Gone Home, there's a very similar supernatural overtone to it. Or certainly what feels supernatural. So I think the game is a walking simulator with just a little bit more. It's a walking simulator with a love story and very, very faint horror elements. Very faint. It's almost unique. And finally, it's just beautiful. That is an outstanding game from pure visual design. So that's me, Firewatch.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Firewatch, and I was surprised you didn't say Edith Finch, because I would say Edith Finch of those two.
It's on the list.
Yeah, I know. but yeah, someone who has done a lot of backcountry hiking and very familiar with those Firewatches, I saw that. I'm like, I get it. It kind of captures that mood, that very isolationist type thing, and what little connection you have, you're very close to it. And yeah, because you're out in the woods, who knows? There's supernatural issues that kind of are out there. You may, even if you don't believe it, you're the most rational person in the world. You hear that sound and be like, "What was that?" Especially at night. And I think Firewatch does a really good job with its assets because black is black. It's very dark. And, the light that you get seems like it's real good ambient light. So the lighting in that game is done really well with the assets that they have. So I don't disagree. It's a walking simulator. You're exploring things. You're discovering things. The little things that you find are notable because you're so alone. That's great.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Well, not to spoil it, but certainly for the first half of the game, pretty much every interaction that you're going to have in that game with another character, with the world around you, if it was taking place in a normal, busy place, you wouldn't think twice about any of it. It's just like you said, the crack of a twig is so ominous when there's nothing else around you and you don't know what's on your left-hand side. And when you were saying about you can be the most rational person in the world, I don't believe in ghosts or monsters, but there's a little wood not far from where I live, which is the most beautiful place. I just remember one time at night, walking home, I just decided to take a little detour through there, and I got held up because I was talking on my phone for a while, and I just ended up doing that thing where you just sit down and sort of walk in a circle, don't really make any progress. And then it's getting dark, and then I was walking this path that I've walked I don't know how many times before, and it's about 50 meters, 150 feet, that's all it is. But it was the first time I'd ever walked it in the dark, and a bit of me was walking like a little bit quicker. Because I don't know for sure that banshees aren't real in that moment.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent that if you're camping, trust your instincts. Always go to that part of your brain that relies on survival. There's only been a couple of times I've felt that hiking. I do not ever always hike with somebody. I always go camping with somebody. Never be alone. Don't do what I do. Do as I say, not as I do.
We're gonna need friends. How do we do this?
Other people are the worst.
But I'll be honest with you, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I have hiked alone by myself a few times, and there's only been 1 or 2 times where I'm like, I'm not going down that way. I'm going to go this other way. I don't know why. Just whatever.
I think that is one of the things that Firewatch does that some of the other games on your list don't do. Some of the other games don't do. Yeah. It is because exactly what you said, you are in the moment where things are happening in Firewatch. What Became of Edith Finch feels very much like a great game in the storytelling, but not so much in the experience. You are just experiencing a story. You are almost being told a story in What Became of Edith Finch. In Firewatch, you are in the story. It is happening to you. And that sense of tension that you get from being alone, from not having any of these things presented to you in the past tense, really showcases that ability of video games to put you in that moment and make you feel like you're a part of it. And that's why I agree that Firewatch is kind of like the example within this genre of this first-person storytelling walking sim that really captures that tension that the story should make you feel.
If we didn't mention it before, Firewatch, of course, just the premise of it is that there's a tower in the woods. Look out for fires. They look for smoke and stuff. So
I think I mentioned it, but I really don't remember.
Yeah, we mentioned the game, and then he went into like that or Edith Finch. But then I was like, just in case nobody knows what the game is.
No idea.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't think we actually did mention it.
So let's do that bit again. Go on, Banana. Cut.
So for me, Firewatch. My third entry, I guess, is Vampire Survivors. I've mentioned this one on the channel before. I'm a huge fan of this game. It is a very simple kind of bullet hell game, but presented in a way that's a bit unique for a bullet hell. You're not a little simplistic spaceship. You're a vampire or some kind of supernatural being. It's not really tremendously well explained. But the functionality of the game is extremely simple. You just move. That's it. That's all you have to do. There's no attack. There's no interact button. It's just move, dodge whatever exists on the screen, and survive. And it is that very effective communication of, okay, you start with this character, they have this ability. Learn to use that ability. You start with the option to choose, I think, one of like 6 characters, and you'll progressively unlock more as you move on. But each of the initial characters you have has a basic weapon, and they tend to have some passive ability that seems to synergize well with that weapon. And so you kind of learn, okay, I have this character who has this passive bonus that means they fire projectiles a little bit faster or something like that. And as I'm playing through the game, I have the option to add new weapons to my arsenal. I want ones that have projectiles with movement speed, because that plays into my passive ability. And then you also incorporate passive buffs, items that you can get and level up that don't really relate to an attack. They don't do things to enemies. They basically provide you with a bonus. And then as you progress through the game even further, you realize, oh, if I pair them up correctly, I can evolve my basic weapon into an even more powerful version, but I need to make sure I know what passive bonus that weapon pairs with. So you are progressively learning more game, and you're encouraged to strategize, because the whole point is surviving. So you're forced almost in a very gentle way to strategize within the game. And I think that is a great way to make that game continuously fun, because the simple bullet hell would get old if there weren't this additional complexity, if there weren't this additional motivation for you to explore other options. And then that game has so many unlockables, so many secrets, and then they've added in these new adventures that have like specific modifiers and specific challenges and new levels and references to other games. There's an Among Us expansion. I think the gun-focused one is a Contra-related expansion. But at its core, this game was a Castlevania reference, which means like this is a bullet hell game that is inherently tied to the gaming industry.
Right.
So not only is it a great example of a video game itself, but it's kind of one of the games that, almost like what Com was saying with Portal, that like introduces you to this club. It's Portal, you're initiated. With this game, it's, hey, we liked Castlevania. We made this game that's kind of loosely tied to Castlevania. If you like this game, maybe you'll like Castlevania. And I think it's definitely one of those things. Like it's a nod to gamers that is, I think, is wonderfully appreciated, because I can't imagine it's a reskin. If they had done this with assets that didn't remind me of Castlevania, that weren't named after things in Castlevania, that weren't using laurel and garlic and things tied to vampires, if they just reskinned this as a purely sci-fi bullet hell, I probably wouldn't appreciate it as much. But it feels more like a piece of gaming history than it would if it were just kind of independent, because of those little homages to other video games.
I think what you're seeing here is very similar to Legion's selection of Plants vs. Zombies, in that it's very much a game of a tradition. And it's not the natural evolution of it, because I think it does so much more than you would necessarily expect it to do. But it's a leap forward in the evolution of that kind of game. And games, it is essentially a bullet hell game, right? I've never quite understood the definition of bullet hell, but I think it is one.
Yeah.
Let's call it one. It's another, like Plants vs. Zombies Tower Defense, it's another classic style of gaming. And all we're doing is we're bringing this really into a more modern package, suited for modern sensibilities, but maintaining the ease of play that we expect from this kind of gaming, made for a simpler control system, made for a stick and 2 buttons. and they bring us this experience, meaning that if you pick up that controller for the first time and you are kind of overwhelmed by all the different buttons and keys and paddles and whatever it might be, here's a game that you can play that introduces you to a whole style of game that you probably don't even know exists, a whole style of game that's really iconic in video gaming history, in a way that you can almost certainly start playing pretty much immediately, because if you really want, you don't even have to move. In the first few moments, you're already going to have your character reacting to what's taking place. So yeah, I think this has to be a perfectly good choice for the list here.
I'd always thought that the reason why they added the gun mechanic was a response to Bro Potato. I could be completely wrong, but Bro Potato. Brotato, yeah, Brotato. Yeah. It's very similar.
Just because of the guns that are available in the game and like the characters and the style, I think it is a Contra reference, as none of them are potatoes, but it could be. It could be both. Who knows?
Vampire Survivors is older than Brotato.
Well, that's what I was saying. But he was saying with the gun element that they added. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I want to listen.
The DLC that is added to include these guns, that's not base game. Which is another great thing about Vampire Survivors. There are free expansions. There's paid expansions. There's also free ones.
I want to point out, by the way, I didn't know that. I had to Google it. I had no idea. Yeah, but I think that's also something that's worth considering is the ongoing activity that a game's going to have, whether it be DLCs, whether it be expansions, whether it be just ongoing treatment and whatnot. A game constantly having these small updates like that means that if it is a game that you're going to get into gaming, or a game that is going to introduce you to a whole new genre, it's an example of a game that's going to give you something that keeps you attached to it as well, and probably going to build a bit of goodwill for that genre in your heart.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine anything really much better.
I went back to Vampire Survivors last week and found that there was an update that I didn't know about, and there were new achievements, and there's a new adventure to kind of investigate. So they are constantly keeping up with that game.
Yeah, the roguelike bullet hell. The one I've been playing most recently is Death Must Die, and that also has characters that are have very, like the Super Mario 2, they have different abilities, and so they have different types of powers. So even though the powers you get are somewhat randomized, because whatever god shows up, they can give you a choice of this, and even the level of power that they show up with can be purely random. You could integrate that into your playstyle with the character that you choose. So really, that's been my similar game to Vampire, but without Vampire Survivors, there is no game like Death Must Die. This is similar.
I just want to clarify, I don't think Vampire Survivors qualifies as a roguelike.
No, it's not. But Death Must Die is the bullet hell with roguelike elements. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of combining. Yeah.
I would propose that we move on to sort of the finale, because I think we can see with the kind of games that we've chosen that we notice the way we didn't pick Baldur's Gate, we didn't pick Final Fantasy. These were really meant to be games that. These were really meant to be games that I decide for Legion what he's going to... These were really meant to be games that anyone can pick up and play and hopefully get something out of, and maybe introduce you to a new genre. I just wondered, did you have, with a sentence or so, if you have one to hand, just any games that didn't quite make the cut? So some honorable mentions. Did you have any, Banana?
So I think Legion actually kind of passively or casually mentioned a couple. Castlevania and Metroid were honorable mentions. Wii Sports was definitely on the list. I think Wii Sports kind of leads into those party games that are very easy to pick up. Things like Mario Party and WarioWare that utilize those unique controls that Nintendo came up with the Wii. I think those are a category of game that is inherently approachable. So it's tough to kind of pick the one emblematic one. But Wii Sports was even more approachable. You've heard of bowling before. This is bowling. Bowl. And you immediately know what to do. You throw that Wiimote at the TV as hard as you
And that's Dallas. Legion, what about you?
It's not going to sound obvious, but Prey. So Prey has one of the best introductions ever of all time for any video game, and the amount of the easiness to, because it didn't get a warm reception because it was just so unique. I think it just didn't get a warm reception because it's such a unique game, and without that game you don't have other similar games after. But the amount of experimentation you can do in that game is unbelievable. You can take a base level known weapon that doesn't really do anything. It's like a Nerf gun, and you realize it's doing things for you that you can utilize. There's a glue gun in it. It's just, the amount of versatility in that game is incredible. So if you want a game that you can have some action elements, some horror elements, some suspense elements, but also you want to get a little creative with how you want to approach these things, it's Prey.
Grand Theft Auto 5, which I think is the great modern sandbox game. There's a lot of different ways you can play it as well, especially with the online world. Things like GTA RP, or you could just go offline and play it as the sandbox that it is, or the story it offers. Astrobot, which was very similar to what Banana was saying about Vampire Survivors, in that it's a great game in and of itself, but also an introduction to the world of PlayStation gaming, with all the other characters being brought in. Those little chances to get snippets. So if you don't know this world, it's a way in. And finally, the peculiar take is Twitter/Instagram, which essentially it's a MMORPG where you play a romanticized version of yourself to gain points, which weirdly enough, I think is probably one of the biggest games that's ever existed. We just don't tend to think of it as one.
Reddit.
Yeah, I was going to say Reddit.
Any of these, yeah. The only one that didn't come to mind as it was TikTok, oddly enough. I thought that was slightly different. But most of the social media platforms, they are essentially MMORPGs.
I think TikTok even more because it's monetized.
I think TikTok even less because I know nothing about it. That's why.
Oh.
I have never been on it, not even once. I spelled it TICKTOCK. That probably explains
I always
it.
refer to it as Tic Tac.
Love that.
Just to establish myself as too old to use it.
Finally, to our game that we decided together, which would be the number one choice. It's one of the great accessible games. It's an iconic game. It's a game that if you haven't gamed before, it's going to be a good introduction to gaming. It's a game that if you have played before, it's still there for you and still worth playing. We know it for the ease of play. We know it for simple rule set. We know it for its iconic music. And it's Tetris.
Portal.
And
Baldur's Gate 3.
You had to wonder why I even bothered doing a whole deal for that.
I knew that was going to happen. As soon as you said, like, we all agree.
Hold on.
We've never all agreed.
Hold on. I'll just build up this bonfire here so you can come and piss all over it.
Yep. But yeah, no, Tetris is definitely, I think, as far as gaming goes, one of the most approachable games in existence. It is very simple. It is very obvious when you first pick up and play what you're trying to do. There's really not a lot of other avenues to even consider what your options are. You have a very finite space and things falling into that space. At some point, even accidentally, you are going to complete a lot and then see those blocks disappear and go, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I think Tetris is that almost pinnacle example of effectively communicating through game design what your game is supposed to be about.
Did it ever come with a manual? Because if it did, I didn't read it.
Yeah, that's how we know that.
Oh, Blicky, Brocky or something? Shit.
Orange Ricky. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely what I said.
And then Hero. We're going back to episode 1.
Hero is a
lore.
straight line.
Yeah.
No.
Hero and what was it? Smash
Boy was the square.
Oh my god.
Is the square.
Can't call it that.
And then I think there was like Cleveland
L, Cleveland Z. Yeah.
Okay.
Those were the yeah. They actually have names. Yeah. Who knew?
Would you like Legion to bring us to a full and satisfying climax?
Well, absolutely. Well, we appreciate everybody being here. If you liked the video, give it a like. Give it a comment if you don't mind, because the new algorithm for YouTube is definitely prioritizing people who engage. So please make a comment. If you say, I hated all of Com's choices, I loved all of Banana's choices, put it in the comments, please.
I mean, let's be realistic about it. Nobody's going to love all of my choices.
But yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.